Welcome to Shielded Voices, the podcast where we break the stigma, build resilience, and support the men and women who serve our communities. I'm Mitch, a dedicated law enforcement professional with over 8 years of full-time experience and a combined 15 years of experience in law enforcement. My journey began as a police cadet, a reserve police officer, and now I am a full-time deputy. I am a defensive tactics instructor, an emergency vehicle operations instructor, and a former drug recognition expert. Now, I'm here to share the conversations that matter the most.
And I'm Brian, a deputy with over 15 years of service. I bring my experience as a defensive tactics instructor, emergency vehicle operations instructor, field training officer, a member of the riot team, as well as the narcotics team as a liaison. I'm also a veteran of the United States Army, and I am passionate about faith, family, and supporting our brothers and sisters in law enforcement.
Together, we're here to share stories, insights, and real talk about the challenges and triumphs of life in law enforcement. Whether it's breaking down the barriers around mental health, reflecting on our own shared experiences, or providing tools for growth and recovery, we're here to have the conversations that matter.
Our goal is simple: to support first responders, foster open communication, and remind everyone in this community that they are never alone. This is a space for growth, connection, and building stronger voices together.
Thank you for joining us. Let's dive into today's episode where we continue to break the silence. Today we have an incredible guest joining us, someone who is on a mission to help law enforcement officers navigate one of the biggest transitions of their lives, life after the badge. Jess Flores is the host of the Next Shift podcast, a show dedicated to sharing the personal journeys of officers who have transitioned out of law enforcement, the lessons they've learned, and the perspectives of their loved ones. After making the shift herself, Jess realized how crucial it is for officers to rediscover their identity, redefine their purpose, and reignite the passions beyond the job. Through her podcast, she provides invaluable resources, insights, and encouragement to help officers build the life they want to live. Jess, welcome to Shield Voices. We're honored to have you here and can't wait to dive into your story and the incredible work you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. You made me sound way cooler than I am. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you, like I said.
It's an honor for sure.
Your story is incredible. Your podcast is incredible. I listened to the last 30 minutes just recently before coming on here, or the first 30 minutes of Travis's episode. And
great episode.
Yes, I see a lot of similarities in our podcast styles. Obviously, we have different missions, but same purpose. Can you kind of explain your podcast, how you got started, what drove you into starting your podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So the podcast came about in June of 23. So I really started talking about my transition and this whole Next Shift thing. I came up with Next Shift in March of 22, but I didn't really start talking about it on social media until I would say January 23 is when I really kind of full throttled into that. And it was somewhere around March of 23 where I was like, it's cool to share my story and my lessons, but like there's so many other people out here that I've met and that I've talked to. And like, one, they not only need to have their story told and heard, because there's so many lessons that everybody has learned. And I have learned that I could hear part of Mitch's story and relate to it, but part of Brian's story and relate to it. Or I could be somebody that's like, God, I don't relate to Jess at all, but I'm interviewing one of you and somebody hears themselves in you. And now they're like, oh my God, thank God I have hope. So I started doing some just like Zoom or Instagram lives in March of 23. And after a while, people were like, can I be on your podcast? Can I be? And I was like, I don't have a freaking podcast. It's a Zoom, for God's sakes. Like, but sure, yes, we can chat. But then I had people complain, like I would share the Zoom link and like a story about what we talked about on LinkedIn. And people would be like complaining about the passcode or this or that or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, one, I hate being on video. So if I don't have to share the Zoom link, like that's even better. I don't know how to start a freaking podcast, but I had friends that were not law enforcement related at all, who had been through a podcast course with somebody that I used to follow. She's very big now at this point. And they kept pushing me as well. And I was like, God dang it. Okay, fine. Like, what do you know? What do you have? Like, what do we do? How do we do this? And it was just the basics, like, where do you find music for this? Like, what topic would you want to talk about? And I mean, Next Shift was literally what I had been talking about. And for some reason, I was trying to like go outside of that. Like, how can I be for everybody and reach more people? And after a while, I was like, stop being dumb. Like, talk about the next shift. Nobody is out here talking about the transition from law enforcement to whatever is next, or first responder to first responder, in a way that's not like, here's your next career, like shove it in your face, move on. Like, no, like we're a different person after going through this career, and we have to honestly unlearn a whole lot of things. So one Saturday afternoon, I was like, well, fine, I guess I've got the name. I created a graphic because my brain is just very visual. If I think it, I need to see it. And once I see it, I can be like, oh shit, yeah, let's go. And if I don't have that, it's very hard to like keep moving forward. So I had the logo, I had the title, I had the idea, obviously. I just sat down and recorded on the voice note section of my phone, like the intro and outro. The other friend had told me, like, here's where I found my music. I got sick of scrolling. I just landed on what sounded like it was kind of ideal. I was like, okay, sure, that'll work. At least for just getting started. Because another thing I've learned is we can have all the ideas in the world, and if we never implement them or take action to them, they're just going to die in our brain. And so I am very much the take action. I have no clue what's going to happen here. We're going to figure it out person. They told me about Buzzsprout, which is what I host mine on. They told me about GarageBand, which is what I quote unquote edit. I don't edit my podcast. I literally am just like, I upload the file and I'm like, whatever we said, we said.
That's too. That's pretty much us.
Learning it too. There's enough edited shit out there anyways. I want the raw. I want the real. I want what people are really saying. Learning to be my authentic self has been one of the biggest blessings in my life through this journey of getting out of law enforcement, because I never felt I was able to. So one Saturday in June, I'm like, oh shit, I have a podcast. Holy crap. I sent like the teaser to a few people, and of course they gave great feedback. But I was like,
friends always do.
I was like, you can be honest. This is my first go at this, but I said, you know what, screw it. And then all of a sudden I was not only sharing, the lessons I had learned, then it was bringing other people on. And we did that from June until, I don't even remember when I took that first break, maybe January of 24. And it's not freaking Joe Rogan by any means. It's not like the listeners just come like pouring in, but like I would celebrate every little milestone of, oh, this many episodes, or, oh, this guest was incredible, or, oh my God, look at this amount of downloads or whatever. And February of 24, I was telling you guys off camera, my husband's good friend and our friend was killed in the line of duty last year. And that was the first time I took a pause, like while I was in mid season, and was like, sometimes life smacks you in the face. This is like real life. This is what happened. This is what I got to work through. And it was kind of then that I was like, I don't have the capacity to record episodes of my own, like right now. So season 2 was really, thank God for all you guests, because it was nothing but guest after guest after guest after guest, which was really nice for me actually, because I could take a break and really collect my thoughts. And here we are at almost the 1 year point. I'm like dreading next week's episode that I have to release. Don't have to, that I get to release. But this season also, it's been mostly interviews because there's just too many incredible stories, and we're finally able to tell them. So again, I talk to people who are out now. I don't talk to people who are still in, for the most part. Some of them have been resources that I've shared, but for the most part, people are out and they're finally able to take that breath, share that story, and feel supported, feel seen, feel heard, and they know that they're making a difference in the lives of the listeners.
It's crazy. The way she's talking, Mitch, it's like I'm sitting here smiling because this asshole, like a few months ago, it's the same kind of thing. He's like, actually it was months and months ago. It's like, let's do a podcast. I'm like, dude, I'm not doing a podcast. Like, and this was in the depths of my very dark place, right? During all the crap that's going on.
Yeah. And
of course I'm like, no. And then finally on like a Friday night, I'll be honest, I had like probably 4 whiskeys in me. I go, let's do this. And it was which is why our first 2 episodes sound like crap, because I literally got my iPhone with like earbuds in, but it was very raw, and absolutely. Very unfiltered, and like you, that's our platform. The only editing we do, we had an episode a few weeks ago. Rob Pointer, awesome dude, talks about the Siren Project. He had a train that went by every 30 minutes, so we had to scrub out the sound.
I also have trains and a fire station right across the street, so it might get annoying.
We'll figure it out.
I love it. I freaking love it. So, and then I came across you just scrolling podcasts, and it was like, because of where I'm at, And in my 16 years of kind of being forced out of the career, but also knowing I could never go back, it's like, what do you do? What do I do? And
Yeah.
then, and like I was telling you before we started recording, it was, so I don't know what it is. Something you said, like, stop scrolling Indeed. You know, you damn well better have a LinkedIn, and cops are great at networking. So network.
Yeah.
So that's what I started doing. And it's been a godsend. So,
well, I'm so thankful to hear that.
yeah. Oh, it's awesome. And I didn't have to pay for it either. So.
Exactly. Dude, the number of people who are like, man, LinkedIn Premium and I got to pay for it. I'm like, no. I've done it to over 17,500 people. Like, you don't have to pay for anything. Like,
yeah, you're like the LinkedIn Pro to me. Like, I literally have mine pulled up on my other screen. I think I have like 80 connections or something like that. It's like, but I've only had it for a week.
And that's important because so many people will look at that and be like, well, Jess has this many. And I'm like, guys, it's not about that. Trust me, I don't have 17,000 clients.
Yeah, no.
Trust me, I do not have that.
Right.
But it's also being very strategic. And I block people every single time I get the thing that's like so-and-so and 9 others followed you. I'm blocking like 7 of them because they're foreigners or they're bots or whatever. I'm like, no, but I also do things very different because I haven't been looking for a corporate job. And that's kind of the difference. I get to go on LinkedIn and say whatever I want, however I want. And I don't have any repercussions or any concerns about who's going to see this and am I going to get a job? So it does look a little different. And people need to realize anytime you're building anything, all you have to do is show up. You have to show up consistently and whatever that looks like for you, not like Brian, not like Mitch, not like Jessica, like you, and talk about the shit you want to talk about and bring people into that space.
Yeah, and it's also I don't anytime I see a political ad, I don't know.
Not the place. Get rid of it.
No, and I'll be honest, I hit the report button because it's not for LinkedIn. But
well, and honestly, people don't like seeing selfies or this or that. I'm like, I am my brand. I'm literally my business. I've got to tell you my story. I've got to be kind of part of this, guys.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to get into let's get back. Let's go back. Like now that we've gotten it out, and I want to talk more about it later too, the next shift, because I really do. It's like I want to plug that for you as much as we can. Like it's awesome. I've listened to episodes, and I mean I've told my wife about it, and it's like you've got to listen to it like this. She is literally talking. It's like when we go to church. I'm like that preacher's talking to me. I know it.
Stop talking to me.
Yeah. So let's get back. So what? Where'd you grow up? Did you grow up on the East Coast or?
Oh, right in the Midwest.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I grew up technically on the Kansas side of the Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas area. So the KCK side, from birth till 4th grade, I would say, which was 1995-ish. And that is actually where I think I started realizing I wanted to be a cop without knowing I wanted to be a cop. So I was around 10 years old, and we moved from that house to the Missouri side to a very freaking small town. Something in me has always known I was meant for more and bigger, not this small town BS that we had to be forced to grow up in, but it was all for a reason. But as soon as we moved to that new house on the Missouri side, my grandpa, who was the only other cop in my family, retired from law enforcement after 36 years. And a couple of months later, he died. We don't really know. There was no autopsy, but he had diabetes. He had multiple heart attacks by the time he retired. I want to say 4 surgeries, if I'm not mistaken. And then I just heard not too long ago that it could have been pancreatic cancer. I don't know where that came from, but something took him out. Literally his 61st birthday, we were there. We celebrated, hugged, kissed goodbye, love you, and woke up to my mom screaming the next day, getting the phone call that he had passed in his sleep. And I just got chills still thinking about it. It's one of the more, I don't want to say traumatic, but traumatic things that I will never forget in my life. That moment. It was the first, I think, death I had dealt with, and I was only 10. I blamed myself, which sounds crazy, but like when he was helping us move into our new house, I got a new bed. It was finally not a twin bed anymore. I got like a queen size bed or full, I don't know.
You got a big girl bed.
Not a big girl bed.
Yeah.
And he was like teasing like, oh, wow, this is nice. I think I want this mattress and blah, 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 blah. And so when he died 2 months later in his sleep, I, as a 10-year-old, blamed myself. And of course, there was nobody there to tell me it wasn't my fault. But I blamed myself. And that was really hard. But it was at his funeral that I saw clearly Grandpa was part of something bigger than himself. And I didn't know what that meant. I couldn't even use those terms back then. But it was a cop funeral because he had just retired. He was also a Marine Corps veteran. So there were service people everywhere. And it was like, wow. And my uncle was a fireman. So then also the firemen were there.
Wow.
And I just remember as a kid going to see him at off duty working at Walmart, and he would buy us like pretzels and ices. Who doesn't love that? Every Sunday he would bring us a Sunday paper and a thing of donuts in his police car while he was on duty, because we lived in his city. And so like those were the memories I had. And I just realized at that point, well, that's never going to happen again. That kind of sucks. And obviously we didn't live in the same city anymore, but that was my first intro, I think. And then, I mean, if you look back to 95, which is really hard for me to do, but 95, my grandpa died. We had O.J. Simpson happen. We had the Oklahoma City bombing happen. I want to say we had one of the first bigger school shootings. I want to say Jonesboro, Arkansas, if I'm not right around then. But every time
that would have been, actually, I think
it was in the 90s.
Yeah. So for reference, the year you're talking about, I'd already been in the Army for 5 years. That's how old I am.
Talk about it.
I think I think it was the Oregon school shooting. Not that it matters, but
yeah, it was one of the big ones for sure.
One of the big ones, yeah.
And my parents were and are big news junkies, so it was always on. And all I could remember seeing, and again, it didn't mean anything at the time, but the heroes running toward the danger and the problems. And then obviously the cops stopped Timothy McVeigh and got him in custody. And like, it was just like all of these things that I think were implanted in there. And then growing up, CSI became a big thing, which literally hooked me, hook, line, and sinker. Like, holy shit, this is the coolest thing in the world. And I never wanted to be like my grandpa, like a street cop. That was never even on my radar. I wanted to be the investigator. I loved investigations. I would sit, such a nerd. Oh my God. Look, my husband laughs at me. I'm like, dude, I would sit and I would watch that. When The Closer came out, all-time favorite investigative show, but I would sit and watch Nancy Grace or Court TV all freaking day, like all goddamn day. And some of the people I've now met who literally like interview her on their podcast because they're friends or go on TV with her, I'm like, what the fuck, fangirl. Right.
Yeah.
Somehow she's never aged, but I have. It's not fair. Right. But like Scott Peterson, I remember that case like the back of my hand. I remember crying when the verdict came out. I was at work. I remember just feeling so horrible for his wife. I remember obviously the OJ shit show. Casey Anthony. I remember all of these cases that just drove me to like, I got to be a voice for these victims, man. Like that was my driving factor to get into law enforcement. It was not at all patrol until I did my very first ride along at 18 and was like, holy shit, this is cool.
Right.
In the inner city. Awesome. And was like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah. So you get, I'm guessing you get through high school. What's it look like to get in the area that you're wanting to police at? What does that look like to even get into policing? You have to have like a college degree or what's that look like?
Not then. So I graduated in 2003, and again, small town, and those idiots had no idea like what life outside of small town looked like. Like plenty of us went to college, but a lot of people stayed behind and just, well, let's get married, let's have kids, let's do that life. And I knew that wasn't for me. Several of us went to school. Most people stayed fairly close. Even I stayed close. I lived at home and commuted like 45 minutes down to the inner city of Kansas City, to UMKC, which is University of Missouri, but the Kansas City campus. Who let me go to school for biology when I wanted to be a cop? I honestly could not fucking tell you. Like, and if that's not allowed, please let me know.
I love it.
So I go to school with declaring a biology major, and I had already had enough credits to begin basically the second half of my freshman year when I started. So that was kind of a blessing and a curse. One, because I was that much further ahead, but two, what the fuck am I doing in an actual college? Like high school was way different, especially like with the teachers that would just give you shit. So did my first biology class, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to work I don't actually want to be CSI. I want to be the investigator part of CSI. Like, I don't need to do the lab shit. So big distinction, did that ride along, world turned upside down. Like, holy shit, that is what I'm going to do. Changed majors, I think, to business, took an econ class and was like, abso-fucking-lutely not. This is not for me. Done.
Math.
Yeah,
nope.
We're not doing this at all.
No.
Of course. And then I went to CJ and I was like, why? Okay. And then I was just bored out of my mind with, I don't care about the history of policing. I don't care about juvenile justice reform. No offense to anybody that does. I did not care. I was 19 years old, 20. And I was like, I just want to be a street cop, and anything I need to know, I'm going to learn in the academy. So again, my school that I went to was in the middle of Kansas City. I was that annoying person, dude. I probably did 6 ride-alongs by the time I was even old enough to apply.
Oh yeah.
I did the Citizen Police Academy and was probably 40 years younger than every other participant, but I was living life. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
But that's a great way to, especially as a young woman, like late teens, like it gives you at least a little taste.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, it didn't do shit as far as like, oh, this is reality, but it gives you a taste. And I've taught it. We have citizens academies that I've taught before, and it's what's interesting is the people at the end of it are like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea this is what you guys deal with every single day, which is why we do the academies.
Yeah,
right?
it's a huge eye-opener for sure. And I mean, I was that dumb kid. Like, I should not have been taking the streets and the routes home that I was taking, but I was like, I got to learn my city. I'm going to work here. So I was taking these freaking like main thoroughfares. I wouldn't get off into the weeds here, but like dumb. My aunt runs some women's and men's recovery homes. She's literally my idol. She's changed the entire northeast part of Kansas City with what she's doing, but she had just opened her first home, and it was a women's home at that time. And so between school and the academy, the Citizen Academy, I would go over there and help her like cook meals, and I was getting to see another side of society that I had never been around or dealt with or anything like that. And so I think that was helpful as far as keeping the people I would be dealing with as humans initially.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then when I actually started work in 2006, I turned 21. I did the written test. I did the physical test the next weekend. I passed. I was like, holy shit, all these naysayers, you're too tiny. You can't do this. You can't do that, blah, blah, blah. Dumped my high school boyfriend of like 4 years because his family didn't want me to be a cop. I was like, okay, bye.
Seriously? Like their Let me guess. It was no place for a woman, or were they just concerned?
Well, I think a little bit of both. I could see from maybe his dad's side that it may be that old school mindset of like maybe no place for a woman, but also like you're not doing it, sir. So who the fuck are you to say you can't do it?
Right.
But also concern.
Yeah, I can tell you like. So Mitch and I both we teach defensive tactics and all what we call the ninja stuff. We teach it like violence is ugly, but for idiots like us, it's also very fun.
Yeah.
In a justified, constructive manner.
Thank you.
But I can tell you some of the worst ass beatings of my life have been from 110-pound women.
They're probably like the strongest, most psychotic people when they want to fight. I'm like, what?
What the hell?
What are you on?
Yeah, I mean, I've had to fight dudes that were giant men, and you're like, well, here we go.
Yeah.
And these 110-pound women, I'm like, I want to curl up on the corner and suck my thumb. Like, no, don't beat me. Like,
I would say some of my worst fights, and I was probably treated worse than females on the street than anybody.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it was horrible
all day long, all day. So, well, what's the academy look like in the state you're in? How long is that?
So it is. They lied. They said 6 months, but if you do 28 weeks, that is definitely 7 months of academy.
Yeah, 7. Wow.
Yeah, 7 months. It's not live-in, thank God, but it is Monday through Friday. Obviously, holidays off or whatever. But I quit college after 2.5 years. Again, I knew I was like, I don't freaking need this. Like, I need to be a cop. Like, that's where my focus is. And I have always learned, like, what do I need to know for the job I'm going to do? I don't need all this extra random shit in my head. It's going to take up space. So I left college knowing that I was going to get hired, which I didn't know, but I knew in my head I was going to get hired as a cop. And so I did. I applied. I did all that stuff March, and I was starting the academy April 24th, if I'm not mistaken, of 2006.
Hold on a minute. You applied, and then you got hired like a month or a year later.
No month. Yeah.
Wow.
What the hell?
Yeah. Well, I took the test, in March, and then I started by the end of April. And this was a time where, I mean, we had 400 people testing at the testing that I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was young, brand new 21-year-old. I don't know.
That's just... Yeah. Mitch, you're thinking the same thing I am. From the time you apply, and what I can tell you now is they've sped up the process because of recruiting. Sped up the process. They've got it narrowed down to about 6 to 8 months.
Oh, well.
When I applied, it was just over a year before you get through backgrounds, like all that stuff.
I think a lot of it helped me because I was the goody two-shoe kid. I literally had nothing in my background. Like the polygraph person called me a liar, and I was like, you can call me a liar all you want. Like I've never touched pot. I've never done that. I've never done. I'm very boring.
Yeah. Like, my background investor said the same thing. He's like, you checked here that you've never smoked marijuana. I'm like,
yeah. And I've never drank. Like, I've never done any of it. Like I just...
Oh, no, they didn't ask. I'm like, you didn't ask about alcohol. Yeah. I drank like a motherfucker in high school. And like, I mean, Wow. So,
And
wow.
we
Okay.
had a
So,
big class. I want to say we had between 40 and 60. I can't really remember. I'd have to look at pictures, but we had a big class and we had a lot of females in it, honestly. I was like, wow, this is different.
and is the class all for the same agency, or is it for agencies all over the state?
So it's a regional academy. We had mostly KCPD, but we had some of the outline, a few, maybe 5 or 6 people from the other agencies. And you could definitely, I mean, there was a sense of pride for being the actual KCPD recruit, not only
Was
from
there?
instructors, but also like, we're the shit and you're not. Like that started very young,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
And it was, I mean, that I had never been in a fight. I had never touched a gun. I had never fired a gun. I had never anything. And I mean, I walked into that class on that first day and was like, hi, I'm Jess. I'm super excited to be here. And I got shit the entire rest of the academy.
Of course you did.
The young, dumb, who is this 21-year-old, brand new 21-year-old, like think that she is. And then, I mean, I felt the hate. I felt the doubt. And then at every step of the way, I proved every single person wrong. Even winning push-up contests. I've never done a push-up until I knew I was going to the academy and had to. So I was just that determined to shut the naysayers up and prove myself right more so than prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm. Jeez, that's young. Like I even look back, like I'm like, but y'all babies to me. So, but when I look back, I genuinely think there's something to be said. Mitch and I have talked about this before that. And I know in most states it's the same. You have to be 21 to be a copper firefighter. My personal opinion is 25 should be the minimum age, only because there's so much science out there now that, especially in men, the brain hasn't even fully developed yet at 21. And then now we're taking this, like Mitch, he got into this. He started doing the cadet bullshit at 15. Yeah. So now he's 15 years old, seeing dead kids, dead bodies, like right out of the gate. Right. And then I go back to your grandpa, 36 years. How often do we hear that? Guys do and gals do decades and decades as first responders, and within 2 years they're gone.
Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking. And I think one of my recent guests said he posted an article or a study that said dead at 57, and it was an FBI study showing that first responders, especially law enforcement, around 57. I'm like, we don't even retire till we're like 52 or 55. Like, what the hell? Like, that's not anything. And I mean, so many of us spend however many years miserable just counting down. Well, only this long, or man, I've still got this, or like, it's just a miserable way to live when you're looking at it like that. And so many of the people that I've talked to, it's crazy to talk to like the guests I talked to and see those of us that started at 21, those who started late 20s or even in their 30s, and see the difference. One, not only throughout their careers, but when they transition. Most of the people who come in a little bit later, they have a family, they have a community outside of law enforcement, they have hobbies and things like that already developed that they can carry through the career. Some of them lose it, obviously. But those of us who were like, no, this is it. This is my life. Like, this is my 30 years and I'm going to be good to go. Like, this is all I need. And then in the culture I was in Kansas City, I mean, for God's sakes, we were going out on our off days with each other and talking about work and drinking and doing all the things and like being silly. And like, you never got away from policing ever.
Ever. And
it was never positive.
No, I'm fortunate that like we all have our core group of friends, and Mitch has got had his core group of guys that he came up with. But I never, on my off time, I was like, I've got a best friend of 30 years. Like I started later in life. I started at 35, 36 years old. Wow. So I had good mentors saying, hey, when you go home, don't hang out. Like, this is our family at work. Now there's a few guys that you do every now and then, but it was rare. I made a point to not and be home. I mean, it was still later detrimental to my family because of the job which is all reconciled now and doing good. But because of that job, it owns us. And what's crazy to me is we eat our own in that fucking profession. It's insane.
It's insane. It's a thing. It's horrible. And especially as a female, going from an academy class with a ton of females to a shift with no females. And I can't say none because like my first sergeant was a female. My first captain was a female. I always had like those people around, like I knew they were there, but I didn't work with them. I was usually the only female on a shift or even on a watch. Or maybe there was like one or two others. But man, females really just hate each other on this job. Really bad.
They're crazy.
And so there was never like a support, like female support system, but I was also not the person who went into work and was like, what race are you? What sex are you? Like whatever. I was like,
Right.
I didn't have, when we would walk in a room, my buddies and I, and they would be like, gentlemen, ma'am, I was like, don't separate. Like, I did not need to be separated out. Like, don't segregate me away from this. Just say, hey guys. Like, I'm not offended if you say, hey guys.
Right. That's a sign. Thank God. Right. Yeah.
We're all here. We're all on the same team. Like, we are what we are. Please do not call me out separate. I'm not going to call you out separate. Like, just don't be dumb.
Yeah. So what's it look like? You're starting this career at 21 years old. And obviously in the beginning, it's like, oh my God, this is the best thing in the world. Right. I'm driving fast. I'm pointing guns at people. Was there a call that, like, early, when you go through, like, I'm guessing your training program, a lot of people have, a pretty significant call just during training that kind of makes them go, ooh, I didn't really think about this part of the job. Did anything like that happen for you?
I can't, for training for like FTO process, which was supposed to be 10 weeks. I ended up only having 8 weeks because my grandpa died my second week out of the academy and they gave me a whole week off and I couldn't believe it. And they didn't make me make it up. Wow. And then I had the flu for another week of it and they also didn't make me make that up. So I assume I proved myself well enough. And they also knew me from the many ride-alongs I did prior to employment. But I'm trying to think back to FTO and I don't think anything that was like super caught me off guard. I was always my harshest critic, that's for sure. Like my FTO never had to be the one to tell me like, Jessica, you fucked up. Be like, no, I fucked that up and wow. And one of them was literally like not having my gun out when we were knocking on the door to something. And I don't even remember why there was maybe a knife involved somewhere, but I had it out when we went up the stairs to the apartment, but not at the front door. And he gave me shit. But anyways, like, no, I've that 7 months of an academy prepared you pretty freaking well for the shit you were going to see. And I mean, you do 10 weeks of training. I stayed at the same place where I did my FTO training and we had 7 officers shot my first year. So like you heard it, but because Kansas City is so big, I'm here in center zone and we've got Metro just south of us. We've got East Zone just to the east of us. North and South are so freaking far away. Like you're probably never going to go there. And East, where I ended up patrolling for a majority of my career, that was like Cowboy Central. I was like, good God, who are those idiots over there? Like, and you didn't hear any of it on the radio, right? You only knew an officer got shot if they citywide assist, officer needs assistance, whatever. And you're like,
so the way you're talking, and it's going to be different for people all over the country, right? Yeah. When Mitch and I hear people that have been through what you've been through, like you're talking about OISs the way we would talk about a domestic.
Yeah.
Like it's normal. It's not.
It very much became the normal. And I will tell you, like, I remember one of them, it's actually on a cops episode where over in East Zone, one of our guys was found a carjacking car. Idiot gets out of his Camaro, starts like shooting, does hit him, thankfully, in the foot. And here's the deal. None of them were killed. So none of those officers were killed. They were injured, but none of them were killed. And I think that changed things a little bit. So nobody was killed, but that cops episode, the dog finally gets him and blah, blah, blah. Well, one of the next shifts after that, we get back to work and they play the audio and you hear the assist go. I even got goosebumps just now. And that was 2007. So almost 20 years ago. Crazy. But yeah, you hear that tone and you're not in the moment anymore. And then it kind of impacts you. They trained us and prepared us so well. And I'm telling you, it's almost scary how much I could disassociate. But yeah, like in the moment, you just knew you had to be in the moment.
You gotta do a job.
The car stop that you're on and you just heard that assist come out, you got to walk back up there and deal with this person. So like, now, are you going to pull a fucking gun? Like it was this, and I talk to my husband about this all the time and kind of the way things have changed over the years, but I'm like, no, we literally were taught or prepared. Everybody on a call or stop is going to try to kill you. That's just how we approach every single thing. And whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, it's how we did things back then. Yep. And I'm still alive today because I did that.
Because of it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the stuff that I later in my career taught.
Yeah.
Was all of that stuff. And it was like, and I would even tell my recruits as an FTO as well, like, yeah, I know you're doing a traffic stop and you saw the person, she's an 80-year-old lady, but you better be finding at least 2 different ways to put a bullet in the back of her fucking skull if you need to. And they're looking at me like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I'm not joking, man. Like, you have no idea what you're walking in. Traffic stops, are probably the single most dangerous thing police do.
You're always
Because
walking into their habitat.
the
Like,
unknown. That's right.
yeah, you don't know what the hell is going to be happening, and they can pull a gun much faster than I'm going to be able to react to what the hell they're doing. So
that's the
we
truth.
just, we can put it back in our holster far quicker if we need to. And I mean, it's not like I went out with my gun pointed at him, for God's sakes. It's at my leg.
No.
Like, you don't even know I have my gun out, for gosh sakes. Like, calm down.
Yep.
It'll be okay.
Yeah. So you go. So after FTEP, now you're. You guys ride solo cars, or you ride partner cars?
We were all solo, which was kind of shocking. And I had done ride-alongs, so I knew that. But I usually rode with proactive units, so it was 2 in a car. So it was kind of like oh shit, okay. Or if we had cars broken down, now you're riding with somebody or whatever. And I stayed at that first place from November when I graduated of 06 to June of 07, and I went to the Cowboy Central freaking East Patrol. And the week before 4th of July, and now mind you, I was still in the inner city at Center Zone, but over here it was a different ball game. It was, is that a firecracker? Is that a freaking gun? Is that like, there were nonstop gunshots constantly all day. I was like, well, no wonder they're like cowboys over here. Like, you just don't know. And I mean, we would drive down the street. Sometimes we did have a partner, but you would drive down the street and they would either fire a gun right behind your car. They didn't give two fucks that you were the police. Like, and we had such a gang issue in that area. They're like, you motherfucker. And sometimes when you had a partner, you were bold and you get out and you'd motherfucker them and you'd be like, what are we doing? Like, who's going to jail tonight? And then sometimes
seriously?
You're like, yeah.
Jesus.
And sometimes you're just like, okay, we're going to keep going. Or, was that fireworks?
Hold on. Hold on. Help me out.
Why I'm so callous. I'm like,
you're driving down the street and you know that somebody just shot a gun behind you and you make the decision, fuck it, just keep going.
Yeah. I mean, like,
I don't even know what to say.
You pick and choose.
That's a huge, if I'm telling you right now, we're in this area, even the big we work in the big metro area. That happens, it's all hands on deck. Oh. Not even joking. Like, we're going to do, they're like, somebody's going to jail. So and for you, you're like, man, there's coffee up. I'm going to go get coffee instead. Like, you know what I mean?
Like, it's a dime a dozen happening and like, you've got this, yeah, it was just not a thing. It was like the norm, if you will. And like, They didn't shoot at us if it hit our car, obviously, but we drove by and now we hear the gunshot go off. Like, it's just like, whatever.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to make jest. It's just so crazy, the difference. Because even like you just said, you're like, I mean, they didn't shoot at us. Like, that's just a normal thing for you.
Yeah.
And that's from right out of the gate. Like, that's.
So that's within, June of 07. So within 7 months. And then it wasn't, they always tell you in the academy, at least one of you will be involved in a first critical incident within a year of your, career starting. And we're like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. And obviously, like, we had multiple officers shot, but it wasn't anybody I knew. Nobody died, like, blah. And then one night, August, 2nd, I believe, of 07, I am across town, like right at the border of where our zones meet, and I hear my guys, or I at least see them on the screen, and they're out doing surveillance on this shitty apartment complex with these idiots that we're trying to catch. Like, we don't know who exactly, but we know they're dealing dope out of here, whatever. I hear the foot chase come out. I start obviously driving that way, and then all of a sudden, hold the air, shots fired, officer down. And I was like, okay, well, that's my people there. And like, people I work with, my squad. So I am like, lights and sirens, haul ass. I think I made it. I don't even know how many city blocks that was, from the 2600 block to the 5300 block, whatever that is math wise, in record time. And the first thing I care about on scene, my buddy is okay. He was actually in the academy with me. He was shot. It was in the foot. Sounds like they got in this foot chase. Guy pulled a gun while they were all wrestling. Shot went off. One of the guys that had been on tack, let's disengage. He shoots and kills the guy. So they somehow get the suspect over here on the side of the road, and my friend is over here. And after he's okay, like, you have responsibility to stand with this idiot that just did this. And like, I remember just looking at this man and watching the life drain out of his eyes and not giving a fuck. Like, I felt my soul literally lift out of my body in that moment, because I watched it happen. And I was like, well, that's new. but also fuck you. Who do you think you are? And that,
shot my buddy, motherfucker.
That us, and knowing my buddy was fine still, it was that us versus them mindset kicked in, and I was never the same after that. I was never the same after that. I was definitely, I am going home at the end of every shift. Go fuck yourself.
Yep. I don't care who you are.
I don't care who you are or what your past was. Like, I don't care why you thought this was okay. Like, no, I'm going to go home.
Right. And that was that, I'm guessing that wasn't the only incident like that you dealt with through your career.
That was like the first and the major one where I remember like literally physically feeling a change. After that, it was, again, everything seemed pretty normal. We dealt with shit the same way. Again, not ways that you could probably deal with things today. I saw things. I even participated in things. I was like, what the fuck? This is probably wrong. So now moral injury is like a thing that we talk about, and we didn't talk about that then. We had no idea what the hell that was. Looking back, I'm like, that was my whole freaking career. Like doing and saying and acting in a way that I knew wasn't right, but it was going to keep me alive and it was going to get me home. Like, that's kind of what I gave into. And then, so that was 2007. 2 years later, October of 2009, I had just dropped my partner off. So we did get to a place where, okay, you guys can ride 2-man if you have the staff, if you can do that.
Okay. Yeah.
So I get a partner. We had just interrupted a burglary at this dope house the week before. Got all this crazy stuff, blah, whatever. So I had just dropped him off for the wagon. I'm going back to check on this house because they're not stopping what they're doing. Like, they just got ripped off, whatever. And as I'm at the stoplight 4 blocks away, pop, 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 I'm like, motherfucker. I just dropped my partner off. I was like, well, I gotta act. I'm right here. Like, there's no way to not hear that. So it was literally like a block away. And so I turn my car, turn my recording shit on. I jump out with my gun. I'm using cover from all the cars parked on the street. And all of a sudden, just like mass, I say kids, but they're probably late teens, early 20s running out of this alley. I'm like, motherfucker, okay. So I'm giving directions. Hey, I'm going to need da 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 da. I see this kid. He's got a gun. Obviously, that's what I'm focused on. Get on the ground, blah, 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 blah. I'm using a car between us for cover. He does get on the ground, still holding the gun. And all of a sudden, 3 more shots, and they go right by. I mean, like, I hear them, like, right by my head. 1, I heard the shot, and 3, I felt like them go by. Like,
and you can hear the snap. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, fuck. So I drop and get behind the cover. This kid takes off, of course. I take off running after him. He drops the gun. He jumps the fence. At that point, I'm like, I don't even give a fuck about you. I got your gun. None of these other kids are going to grab this. Like, I need cars here. I'm sure somebody got shot in this mess. Like, I'm sure somebody got shot. Start a cascade for the hospitals.
Was the shooting? So after you get this kid proned out, is it somebody shooting at you to get you off their buddy kind of thing?
I would assume so, but he was like, so this is an alleyway. They're in this Halloween party in this building, and there's like a brick wall. So I don't even know if they now saw him on the ground or if they just saw a cop and a gun pointed, that direction.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea. There were so many kids running out of this alley. I don't even know who shot. I have no idea. And he's not even prone out necessarily. He's like dropped to the ground with his gun. And then he drops it. Again, I get that. People get on scene. We check it. It's a freaking nail gun that he converted to a 22. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, you want to die because of this? Like, what?
But that's how these guys, that's how they're defending themselves in the streets at this point, right? Like, they couldn't get a real gun. I got to come up with something.
I mean, for God's sakes, most of us saw the videos of like the super soakers being turned into shotguns. Like, you can't trust a fake gun. Like, and that was my mindset. I was like, I don't give a fuck what kind of gun they have. If it looks like a gun, real or fake,
pointed at me.
I don't care if there's an orange tip on it. I don't give a fuck.
I'm shooting
like,
you.
You don't point it at me. You should know better. So anyways, we get through that. My sergeant is calling detectives because this is where it gets a little like annoying for me now. Is it wasn't an officer involved shooting because I couldn't identify a target and shoot back. There were kids running out of this alley between me and whoever did shoot at me. So I can't just shoot blindly into a crowd to try to hit my assailant.
Of course.
But it's not an officer involved shooting because I didn't do that. So they're like, well, does she really feel like a victim? I'm like, no cop, first of all, wants to say they're a victim ever of anything.
Ever. No.
And 2, I mean, I felt and heard them go by my head. Like, I feel like those were meant for me. They definitely weren't for the guy on the ground. So
you're being shot at.
Yeah. And so that was my first, like, what the fuck am I giving my all to this department that I was so proud to work at? I was so proud to wear that badge. I'm still very proud that I got to wear that badge. I'm just thankful for the lessons I learned, I guess. But that was my first, like, what the fuck? Like, if the community hates me, I can deal with that. Like, I've been trained to deal with that, right?
Yes.
I have not been trained to deal with my department not having my back when I am the victim of something. And it really did. That kind of changed my attitude from the us versus them versus me versus everybody type of mindset. So I'm not given time off at all. I'm not checked on by command at all. I did call in the next day because I literally left work that day after going to the hospital to interview my 2 shooting victims from that same incident, the ones actually shot in the incident. Interviewing them, taking their information, blah, 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 finishing my reports, driving home. And I'm like, my parents could be getting a call right now that I'm no longer here. And I'm 23, 24. I was like, and it just hit me like, holy fuck, this is a reality that this could happen. Mm-hmm. Like, it's that close now that it's a reality. So I just bawl all day long. I cry.
And it's interesting. It's normal. And talking to people, the difference in policing East Coast, West Coast, except for like California, LA, stuff like that, is you just got shot at, but now you're still tasked with doing the investigation and interviewing people. You know what I mean? Like, I can promise you here, our agency, 2 weeks off.
Yeah. And
don't you think, Mitch?
Yeah, I agree with that. 2 weeks off, you're done. You're not, if you just had someone shooting at you, you're not going to complete your investigation. No. Someone else is going to take that over.
Detectives are coming out to do that crap.
And I'm going to be honest, I don't think detectives ever came out to the scene. I remember I did go into the room that these kids had been in the back of this building or whatever, and we saw like a shotgun box. So somewhere there was a shotgun. And when I went to the hospital to interview the 2 that actually showed up, a third one refused to cooperate, or like they called and said they were shot, but wouldn't cooperate. But these 2 went to the same hospital. The one little punk, he had been shot in the arm, but came through to his chest. Second Halloween in a row being shot, 19 years old. The female, she was right around the same age. She got peppered with birdshot in the back from a shotgun. And she was laying on her stomach. And when I was driving home, that's what I actually thought about, was her back peppered with that shit. And that could have been my face or my body. Holy shit. Like,
and she was deceased?
No, they both lived.
No.
Yeah, they both lived. So I was like, motherfuck. But yeah, I go back and I type my own reports about everything. It was pretty nutty. And then again, nobody ever checked on me. And at the time I was dating a cop. I lived with the cop.
Mm-hmm.
Things were rocky.
Bad for you.
No shit. Kind of. A lot of lessons learned, but it was one of those, I had lost myself so much in the job and lost myself so much in that relationship. And what can I do to make him happy? He was cheating with everybody, like whatever, but it was my fault. Like when I would catch him, because I'm an investigator by nature, like when I would catch him, it was my fault, but I wasn't strong enough to leave. And then projecting that onto my victims at work, which was really shitty looking back. But when this happened, nothing there. When I finally caught him the last time when I actually left him, he made the comment, something like, "You've never been the same since you're shooting, blah, 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 blah." And of course, like, why didn't you ever say anything to anybody? And so I was like, well, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. Because I felt fine. Like, I was just back at work, right?
Yeah.
Like,
in quotes, fine.
Yeah, I was fine. Yeah. And I remember going into work the next, I don't know, day, week, whatever, and being like, I got a question. Like, why the fuck was I never given any type of anything? Like, I was never, do you need to go see this person? Do you need to talk to this person? But these people who are off currently right now for being on the scene of an officer involved shooting are off. Like, they weren't involved. They were just on scene when that officer got involved in a shooting.
Why the disparity? Was it something with you personally?
No, I don't think it was me personally. I think, again, big scene when an officer actually shoots back. I think they treated it different than when you don't shoot back. Personally, I have no idea. But I was like,
right, because it's it's more traumatic that you pulled the trigger, but just having bullets whiz by your head, you're good.
Yeah. Like, no, I mean, is it more traumatic? Because like I didn't get a chance.
For me, that's closure. Yeah, that's we get to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna sound morbid and it's gonna sound dark to those people listening that aren't cops, but we all get it. Every time something comes up like a mall shooting or something like that, or a school shooting, and I hear that the shooter took their own life, I get fucking pissed. I'm like, fuck you. Let guys like me and gals like you come in and fucking put you down. If you want to fight. Yeah. And I know that sounds demented and bad, but there's also a certain amount of, yes, it's traumatic. Regardless of the circumstances, taking a life is very traumatic, but there's also some closure that comes with that in some certain
I would agree. And I think part of it for me too was I never got to know who shot at me. And I still had to patrol these streets. he could be around the next corner. He or she could be around the next corner. And there was this one little fuckstick that we dealt with all the time. He wasn't little. He was actually very big, but he was in a little gang with his buddy. But he made the comment probably, months later, something about that shooting scene. So clearly they were talking about a cop getting shot at. And I was like, you dumb motherfucker. Yeah. But again, no detective ever opened an investigation. So like, I didn't even have anybody to be like, fuck you, you're going downtown and you're going to talk to so-and-so. Like, I didn't have anything.
So it was never, the fact that was never even investigated, that the fact that you were shot at.
Yeah. And I remember going back to work and listening to my audio and honestly being very impressed that I was able to stay calm under the circumstances and direct people where I had to direct them. But I was like, this is fucked up.
And is that normal for them? Is that normal? Like if an officer is being shot at, they just kind of
brush it off? I can't speak for other departments or even any other incident at that police department. And again, I don't know if it's because I didn't pull a trigger back. Like I honestly don't know. That's the only thing that makes sense in my mind. I never got answers, that's for sure, from anybody.
That is just, I don't even have words to that. It's just so like it. I'm telling you, that would be there. Every surrounding agency would be coming to that scene where we work.
Yeah.
If we just got on the fire on the radio, and I'm calling a code 0, we call it code 0, which is I'm being shot at.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have 50 cops there inside of what, Mitch? 4 minutes.
Oh, and we're gonna have 4 different counties away showing up.
Oh yeah. Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
Needless to say, by July of that next year, it was, peace out. I'm just done. Like, I'm not going to, so let's back up a little bit. I ask, like, why are they getting time off just for being on the scene? And I didn't get offered anything. I get stuck on the desk at that point. Months later, I get stuck on the desk. You need to go see the psychologist. Well, then psychologist kept pushing every 2 weeks back the date of when I could see her. And after a couple months, I went back for maybe a month or 2. And then I was like, I'm not fucking putting up with this. I'm not, if this is how you're going to treat your people. Like, it's not worth it. We're having cops shot every single year here. Like, I'm not going to deal with the public and you not having my back.
Like, they put you on a desk because it's, to them, you're like reaching out for help. And so they put you on a desk.
I mean, that shows you how long ago this was. This was in 2009 and 2010. It was 2010 technically when that happened. But yeah, you weren't talking about mental health or, oh man, that was hard, or man, you just weren't doing that.
It seems like you had to ask those questions in order to get the support.
And here's the thing, like, I wasn't even asking for help. I was just pissed off these people got time off and I didn't. And my boyfriend was just like, you're crazy ever since then. Again, he got caught cheating. So it was like a whole clusterfuck of like, what happened? And then you're stuck on the desk listening to the radio right behind you of your guys going out and doing the things and getting involved in the things. And you're like, mother F, I just want to be out. Like, why am I here? And nobody can give you an answer. You just got to talk to the psychologist.
Yeah, I got put on the desk, and that was a very miserable time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like being diagnosed depression, anxiety. It's like, hey, you're going to sit at this desk. We know that you're going through some shit, but we expect you to do your work and not really engage with other people. It's like, well, fuck, that does nothing for my mental health.
Yeah.
That's
makes
shitty.
It worse.
Yeah.
And I don't really know the solution either, because when you talk to, there was a book by Brene Brown I was listening to a couple years ago, and she deals more with the military, but when somebody is asking for help and they send them home in isolation, basically, like, they're like, that's worse. Like, that is the worst thing you can do. So it's like, okay, do I send them home to be like in their own surroundings? Do I let them come to work, but not in full capacity? Like, what is the solution here? And I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either, especially after having gone through being on both desk duty, returning back to work, then desk duty again, now being off on workers' comp. I
think a solution is, one, maybe be off, but you have an obligation as a department to be there for your freaking people and to check on them and have your peer support team constantly there, checking on them, making sure they're good, making sure they've got whatever they need and that their mental health isn't suffering. And it's not just a mental health injury. If you've got somebody with a knee injury or something like that and they're off for months, I guarantee you their mental health is suffering, whether they want to admit it or not. They're not out there with their guys, especially if something traumatic happens while they're off. You've got to keep in contact with your people and keep checking on them. That's the first thing I can think of in my mind that that these departments can change.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Well, they let me keep my work phone because command staff wants to stay in touch with you. They want to be able to communicate with you and check in on you, make
humanize
sure you're doing
me and call me on my fucking personal phone. Like, No.
Right. Yeah. But how many phone calls have I gotten
Yeah.
since
Exactly.
saying
Zero.
we're here to support you?
Yeah.
Zero. And one of the, I'm not even going to say the rank. One of the people that are up here, literally to his face, and I'm going to do this for you, Mitch. Like, we care. I'm going to be checking in with you. He hasn't heard shit. Nothing. How? Oh,
We are just numbers.
Yes. How hard is it to communicate? I mean, communication is the key to any good business, any good anything, any good friendship, marriage, anything.
Yep.
How hard is it to just communicate? Just communicate. I don't care if it's once a month. Put a reminder in your calendar. Call Mitch.
Well, and here's my thing. So command, okay, who fucking wants to hear from them anyways? Your sergeant? For fuck's sake, you work for them, like in a squad of how many? Like, if I can look at that seat empty at roll call every day and be like, oh, I wonder how Mitch is doing. How hard is it to be like, hey, Mitch, we're going to FaceTime you from roll call. What's up, buddy? Like, how you doing? Can we
that would be cool.
Like, it's not hard.
My gosh, that would be, you are on an island. You really are. And then transversely, if you get put on IA or administrative leave for even if something chippy, right? You're all alone.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that we don't learn this lesson until it's too late, unfortunately. And until you've gone through it, you don't think it's going to happen to you. It won't happen to me. Well, it will.
Oh, I know. I've told people that. I've been a union rep for years, and I tell people, like, they're like, oh yeah, but I've been here 6 years. I haven't even gotten in trouble. I'm like, what? You ain't doing your job.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna get in trouble. And when I say in trouble, like you might get a write up or something like that. But to be put on administrative leave or you're in an IA for some chippy shit that never happened because they just want their own perception. Well, now you're on this island, and I call it administrative leave herpes. Nobody wants it. Yeah. They won't talk to you. They won't call you. You got your core group of people. Yeah. But it really does go to that mental health, whether it's you're off on a critical incident, pick it. Yeah. Even if you're on administrative leave for something egregious, you're still a human. Yeah,
you're still a human. And we have gotten so far away from that. Like the man wants you to be a machine. And I'm not saying man like that, but like the man wants you to be a robot.
The man, yeah.
Like we all work for the man, and they want us to be a robot with no human anything. They forget that we have human emotions, that we're supposed to go through these human feelings and thoughts and all of this. And life is going to smack us all in the face. And it wasn't until probably an episode last year I recorded with somebody, and they said, you go through your entire adult life, for a lot of us, as a cop. And I was like, holy fuck, like 21 to 31, I was like, you go through so many major changes in your life. For most people, they're getting married, they're having kids, they're doing all these. And I'm like, and nobody literally teaches you how to make that work with this.
Right.
Like nobody's talking about that. And those are significant changes in your life, or the death of parents, or the death of a kid, God forbid. Like nobody teaches you how to deal with that. Like be at work, do your job. And well, it's easy to do your job when it's not your own family involved.
And I think command staff and the administration, I don't think they forget. I think they're scared.
I think they forget where they came from 110%.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. But it's the all-encompassing golden handcuffs, right? Yeah. They're scared of the stigma, and their first initial thought, every human's initial thought is personal survival. It just is. That's the way we were created, right? We have to survive. Unfortunately, on the emotional level, people, not just command, but even our coworkers, it's every man for themselves.
And it sounds really shitty, but I mean, it is. Self-care is not selfish. Self-love is not selfish. Like, you've got to take care of yourself.
You do.
And I'm not trying to come out here and tell people, this is not the message of me or Next Shift saying like, be a solo person and do this all on your own. No, it takes community. We're supposed to live in community.
Tribes.
You are the one responsible for your health, your happiness, your family, your wealth, all of that. Yes. You are the one responsible. Do not rely on your department to be the one to give you all of those things. And I just had this realization on a walk like 3 weeks ago. They literally pay me to come to work for 8 to 12 hours. That's all I owe them.
That's it.
They truly don't owe me any more than that.
No, they don't.
I have to do the rest of that with what they do pay me.
Yes.
It's not what we grew up with 20 years ago when I got in, being like, oh, we're this family. No, only when we die is that a family. And it's very sad, but it's true.
And I just saw a post on LinkedIn from a firefighter, and I don't remember it verbatim, and it's been spun so many different ways, but it literally says, don't think that agency is your family, because they're not. They're not.
No. And
They're not your family.
I think it's so important that so many of us are out here sharing that and our own experiences with like evidence to back it up. Like we're not just saying it like, no, here's my story. And we're, again, with my podcast, I love that people have that ability to own their story and share it in their voice. And what I've had to learn over the years is somebody might hear my story and be like, that's not how that happened. And they were there. Maybe they were like part of my department. Okay, well, you were not me dealing with what I was dealing with in that moment. So everybody's story is their story. You could have a different perspective. Look at every crime scene we go to. I could talk to 10 people at the same crime scene and not one freaking story is the same because they all have a different perspective and viewpoint of it.
That's right.
That doesn't mean I'm lying. It doesn't mean that person's wrong or that person's right. This is my story from my perspective.
Yep. And it is your perspective. And I can tell you that perception, everybody lives and thrives on perception. And it's like, hold on a minute. Perception's not always reality, but they don't accept that.
I make that argument all the time when somebody tries to tell me that. I'm like, no, the fuck it's not.
No, it's not. Like, this is my perception. I'm literally dealing with, this is going to sound completely crazy and try to follow. I'm being told that my perception is not what their perception is. Therefore, my perception is not correct because their perception is what matters.
Yep. It's the
do
most
that
crazy
fucking
thing.
math.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that math. Like, now I'm just like, okay, I'm out. Like, I can't. The toxicity of the job, and I'm not talking about a specific agency right now. I'm talking about the job, right? The culture.
Well, it's all about public perception. And I remember telling my last sergeant this. I was just a civilian at an agency for not too long, thank God. But I remember telling him, like, if you gave half the fucks about the people in this building as you do about the public perception of what the fuck is going on in here, we'd be a whole lot better off. And you don't. And until you do, we're going to struggle. Public perception is one thing and skewed beyond belief. And you're doing nothing to better that. You're not coming around the PD doing lives and showing like this or that or how good things are on this site. You're not doing anything to bolster what's going on in this building. You're not doing anything to help the people in this building go out there and better serve. And that's on you.
It's sad, but also extremely refreshing to hear you on the East Coast of where we're, or the east of where, the Midwest, saying the same shit.
Oh, it's across the board, guys. It is across the board.
Why is that but why? Like,
I will tell you, for the first 2 years out of my career, and we didn't even get to the second agency I went to where I lost my career, but I've been out now for 9 years this month, which is freaking insane. I was really mad at God and a lot of people for 2 years and didn't understand why at 10 years, my career that I was supposed to have for 30 years got ripped from me. I was so mad and so whatever. And I look at it now, I'm like, well, one, thank God I'm not out there. And two, clearly I had a bigger purpose. I needed that part of my life, but my purpose is bigger than what that was going to allow me to do or to be. And every single thing I went through, people can sit here and think I'm whining or I'm crying. I'm not crying or whining about any of that and how I felt treated or anything. No, that's part of the story. Like, I'm not crying about it. It made me into who I am today.
Yes.
Because I battled through that.
Yeah. So you did. So you touched on it. You left the big metro agency.
Yep.
What caused you to leave that agency? Can you talk about that and then what, going into your next agency?
Well, one, I think it was being put on the desk when I asked, like, why are they getting this and I'm not? Douchebag was cheating again. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm moving. I'm like, whatever. It was a collaboration of like all of it. And again, realizing my agency didn't have my back. And I was like, I'm not putting up with this. I'm just going to, I'll go make the world a better place in a different way. I didn't know what that looked like yet. I thought nursing maybe because it's kind of similar. So I was like, let me get a CNA license and see if I can even handle like that environment. Got my, I did like an expedited 5-week course, if I'm not mistaken. Past
so this
that,
is after you quit. Like you quit, turn your shit in, you're done.
Turn my shit in. I had no fucks given. See you later. And let me back up to that really quick. So I do that. I did not give 2 weeks. I was young. I was dumb. I was done. I was like, I'm fucking whatever.
You just quit.
I just quit. I go around and I'm turning my shit in and I'm being met with handshakes from people and people telling me, I wish I had the guts to do what you're doing. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, again, we thought we were the shit at that department. And nobody had ever talked like that before. Like, nobody was talking about leaving law enforcement or like, I hated here this, like, we would all bitch, but nobody was like, I would leave or I could leave or da 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 da. And if people did leave, they definitely weren't telling that story. So I was like, well, this is weird. Like, maybe I am onto something. But this is weird. This didn't happen for the last 4 years that I was here. Okay. So I leave. I feel pretty good about it. I'm like, oh, whatever. Life's starting over. Cool. Go do CNA class, pass it. Got a job finally on an oncology floor at a local hospital. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't watch people die every day. Like, I can't. And I literally just came from watching people die every day.
Right. Like, no, thank you.
But man, when you're a decent person and you come into the hospital with a headache or a stomach ache, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, so you've got stage 4 cancer and you've got a month to live. Like I could not. I was like, as hard as I was, I lost all of that real quick when I had to be responsible 3 days in a row or 3 days a week for taking care of this person and dealing with their family and breaking that news to them. I was like, I've done death notifications before, but this is horrible. Like I can't do this.
And God bless the people that do it, right?
Yes.
Somebody, I mean, if not them, then who? That's what I've always said about police work. If not me, then who?
Some of the coolest patients, and it was heartbreaking when they died. Again, I didn't have grandparents at this time, so I just kind of adopted all my patients as my grandparents. But that was rough. And so I was like, I don't think this is it. I applied at another agency here, very small, like 9 square miles, and completely surrounded by Kansas City. Like we were just like a little dot surrounded by the shit. Okay. And it was up kind of like where I grew up. I was very used to going to that area because of where I grew up. So I went there and I just like flat out told the chief in my interview, I was like, this is who I am. I loved open guns. That's what I want to do. I'm going to be a detective. Blah, blah. Like I was so fucking brave and like bold when I was younger. Just
you had nothing to lose at that point, right?
But I remember him looking at me and being like, we don't have those issues here. And I was like, sir, you are sadly mistaken if you think we don't have those issues here.
I'm about to find them.
I grew up anyways. So I got hired. I did about 1.5 years on patrol. And in my training at that department, I didn't even have uniforms yet to go out and like do those ride-alongs I was sworn in, no uniform, no whatever. So it was like ride-alongs for the first fucking 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Okay. No gun, like can't carry anything, like whatever. I'm riding with this person who couldn't make it through my first department's either FTO or academy, one of the two. I want to say FTO. And we go to a party armed call, and he starts walking up to this group of people without his gun out. And I'm sitting here, no gun, walking behind my car over to this tree line, like using cover. And I was like, what the fuck? And
what is happening?
We get back to the car like it's nothing, blah, blah, blah. This isn't Kansas City. We don't just pull our guns on our citizens. I go, then you're going to die one day. Like flat out, I was like, then you're gonna die. Like I don't know what to tell you. Can have a gun out and not make it a big deal. Like we've talked about that. So I was like, I might have fucked up here.
Right.
Anyways,
like,
I do
a little extreme opposite, right? Like Mayberry,
total opposite. But I do 1.5 years or so as a detective, and in my first year, I mean, I kind of brought the hood with me because we had 5 homicides, and they had never had that.
Oh shit!
I was like, my bad, sorry. All domestic.
Thanks, Flores.
All domestic except for one. We actually had like one true victim. It was an AT&T worker, and again, I wanted to be a detective, and I did this throughout my whole career. I knew my goal. I would do the extra on every call. Like I would do, what area of canvas can I do? Hey, detective, can I help you with X, Y, or like, what can I do? How can I be involved in this? And then put my own spin on things and whatever. So I got to like sit on the scenes for that. And I think it was because of the amount of help they sent me to what they call Metro Squad training, where it's a bunch of our agencies on a big crime get together and they send like 2 detectives from each agency. And so you've got the extra help for these bigger crimes. And I thought, holy shit, I have made it. I'm not even a detective yet. I made this, like, cool. And then I got detective like 3 or 4 months later. And only about, only about 1.5 years into that did I realize we need some freaking leadership around here. Like, what is this shit? And so I knew in my head, not trying to sound cocky, but I knew big city experience with now being a detective and like knowing crime scenes and how to run them and things like that. Like, why not? Why not put in? Like, I think, so that was 2014. I got promoted.
Oh, to promote?
Yeah. So I put in.
Okay.
I put in for promotion. We had, I want to say 12 people that put in, and it was 2 spots, a corporal spot and a sergeant spot available. And put in, tested fine, got through the assessment center. And I remember going back to my desk as a detective, and it said, the chief wants to see you. I was like, well, this is good or bad.
Right. Do I need a union rep?
I don't know what happened. But I walk in, and again, I always scan everything. I see my name at the top of this list on his desk, and he's like, congratulations, like you were number 1 in our, and I was like, you're shitting me. Like, I was like, right. In my head, I knew like I have this, even though there were other corporals already testing to be the sergeant. I was like, fuck it. Okay. I guess I did okay. So we're going to do this. And it was very humbling. I will tell you that, like, zero training, zero type of like, here, you're going to ride with the sergeant, figure out what this even looks like. And so
really,
and at our department, it was me and maybe 4 or 5 officers. Like, that was it. And so I was the command on midnights, because you get sent back to midnights. Obviously, you're not going to get to stay on your day schedule. And
so you're back on the road. You're out of detectives, back on the road as a patrol sergeant. Oh, okay.
With no training, no nothing. I was like, thank God my old captain is okay. If I'm like, so we have this scene, and I really think myself and these guys can handle it. If you want a detective to come out, cool, but like I can do it. And I was still trying to do like the help for the detective, like, what PC statement can I write? What like part of like the packet they need to present to a prosecutor? What can I do on midnights to help them out in the morning? Like, because I love being a detective.
So that is, for those of you listening, that's leadership, not management.
But again, like, that is one reason now I think, 1, you should have to be a detective before you're promoted. I think it's just too invaluable. 2, there's got to be, when you put that letter of interest in to become a supervisor, you need to be mandated to do a ride along with a day shift and a night shift sergeant, and just see, like, do you actually want that? Like, is the job actually what you think? Because the amount of admin that came with that job, I was like, what the fuck is this? I was used to Kansas City, and all they do is drive around to cool scenes all night long. Like, they don't do anything. Yeah. So that was like,
I know up here they actually have a sergeant FTEP.
Oh, love
field
that.
Training where they're with another sergeant, which is their FTO for, and I don't know. I had no interest in promoting. I don't know how long it is, but they don't just get thrown to the wolves. A
year later, I got sent to supervisor school at our highway patrol. And I was like, okay, what am I supposed to learn here? I've been doing it my own for a year now.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
How about you teach the class? Like,
but I was like that person who, and I always tell people on my own podcast, like, when you're first, you're not crazy. You're just first. Like, because people like roll their eyes and like, what are you trying to do? And why are you trying to change? I was that sergeant who I was that officer. I never had somebody I looked up to as a leader in front of me. That's for sure. Like,
that's
plenty
unfortunate.
of management people or like supervisors, but nobody. I was like, I really just love how you do this. Or they were taking people under their wing, or like, what's your career path? They didn't even know, like, did I have a boyfriend? Did I not have, like, they didn't know anything about me or my life.
Really?
And again, in a big department, I wasn't shocked by that, but I definitely didn't get it at the small one.
Yeah, but even your own, I can, like, your own team of people, like your own supervisor, your own. Like, I can tell you my last 3 supervisors, like I've been to their houses.
Oh, yeah,
like,
I know.
Family friend. Like, there is definitely something to be said about that, for sure.
Yeah, but I was that person, like, here's a form, guys. I'm going to need you to fill this out. Like, your name, your birthday, what's your favorite tree? Like, are you married or not? Do you have kids or not? What are their names?
Oh, wow.
Like,
good for you.
That type of, like, let's build a file for each of you. Not a bad one, but like, I need to know things about you. And I can keep notes about you from myself or the public or whatever. Like, I can keep good things in a file. I don't need this bad personnel file.
Not the file.
And so, like, that was like weird. Or like, I would take them out to breakfast. I mean, it was midnights and we had 9 square miles to patrol. Like, we can go out to breakfast at Perkins for like an hour or whatever, and I can buy, because I'm a sergeant now, like I thought.
Right.
Their birthdays. Come on into dispatch. Let's have your favorite treat. Here's a gift card. Here's a card. We all appreciate you being here, type of shit. I'm like, I never had any of that. For me, I just saw a post on LinkedIn the other day. Somebody was like, I'd really love to reward my hard chargers with like a gift card or something, or a gift, or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, just use caution. I got in trouble for this. I was like, I told my squad, like, hey, I'd love to do this. And man, somebody ran right to a captain and like, Jessica wants to give us a gift card. I'm like, what the fuck complains about this? But okay.
And that was an issue?
Yeah, it was an issue that you were going to be, they thought you were buying basically stops and like being proactive.
Come on.
And I was like, okay, only if you think of it like that. Like, and one, how is the public going to find out that I'm giving my squad, if they show up and do the work, a gift card? Like,
and who gives a shit if they do? Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, stuff, apparently.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So what happened with this agency? So how long were you with the second agency?
So that was from October of 2011 through technically November of 2016. So as a detective, report writing was always my jam. I loved report writing. And so I wrote a shit ton.
You're a weirdo.
I know, I told you. The investigator part. Like, my ultimate goal at Kansas City after I wanted to be a detective was like, I want to go teach at the academy and I'll teach report writing. So gay.
Yeah.
Lame, sorry. Lame. Like,
Oh, we say Gary minus the R.
yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
But I would write a shit ton of notes. I was typing obviously more, and my wrist had started giving me issues, but I wasn't too concerned because I was a detective. Like, I didn't need to grab suspects anymore. I didn't need to
Right.
pull my gun probably on anything, but I could if I needed to. Well, when you get back to patrol, obviously you're now just another officer with a department of 5 people on duty. So
Right.
you got to be able to do the work of everybody around you. And again, I wasn't that person who chose to just, I'm a sergeant now, you guys handle this. No, we're going to be in it. We're going to be in it. And I'm going to be right there with you. Even if I have to do the paperwork, it is what it is. So when I couldn't grab a suspect anymore and actually hold on with my dominant hand, and I could grab my gun, but man, the amount of pain that would surge through my wrist when I tried to bend it backwards just to grab it, I was like, that's probably worth getting looked at this point. So I got it looked at, was told I needed surgery. Simple surgery though. 3 months, good as new. Okay, shit, let's do this. Let's just do it. Have the surgery. 3 months, 6 months, go by. Still definitely not good. I had no grip strength whatsoever. It's not getting better with regular or occupational therapy. And ultimately I have to make the choice. I got a second opinion. Second doctor said, I can go back in, but if I nick a nerve, you're losing all feeling in your hand. And that's very probable.
Oh.
How small, your hand is. And I was like,
was this an on duty thing?
Yeah. Well, we could never prove it was on duty. Do I think so because of being a detective and the injury? Yes, I do.
Oh.
Could not prove it. City wasn't having any part of it. Okay, whatever.
So, wow.
Yeah. So the second dose of department betrayal, if you will, and not even department. Our HR was for the city, not the department itself. So city HR. Right. And have the surgery. I have to come to terms with, okay, so you're telling me I'm either going to lose all feeling in my dominant hand, which obviously I can't be a cop then.
Right.
Or I have to deal with not being able to grab my gun or hold somebody if I need to be able to do that. Yes. Yeah. I'm well, I think that just ended my career then, didn't it? Because I'm not going to go out there and try to do the job the way I do it and not be able to and get myself or someone else killed. I would never be able to live with myself. Right. So I had to make the decision. I guess I'm freaking resigning. But I was off for February to November and never once thought my career is over. I'm 31. What am I I never once thought it's over until that paperwork was turned in, my shit was turned in, and I didn't even get a thank you for your service. Just go home, because I'd been gone for 8 months. It was like I didn't even exist.
You weren't even there.
No check-ins. I was the one checking in after each doctor's visit, being oh, they extended this, or they extended that, or this is what they're saying.
Even your own command staff's not checking in with you, or no?
No. Not even my own squad. I was the sergeant of these people, and I wouldn't expect them to, but I was your sergeant. So I would check in with my corporal who was running the squad. Yeah.
You're out on injury. It's not like you got caught selling dope or something. You know what I mean? What the hell?
And again, it's almost, one, that was hard, but two, people are looking at you and you're able to do life. It's just, quote, air quote, your wrist, right? People will think that's lame, but it's my gun hand and my gun wrist. So it's pretty significant. But that's a part that you have to battle with your own brain about and be I look just fine everywhere else. I can literally do life. I can go run. I can go lift. I can't use weights, but I can go lift to the gym. But then it's well, what's actually wrong with you? Well, I can't grab someone or grab my gun, which are both vital parts of this job, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's like PTSD, right? Physically, I look fine. I go out, have picnics, take my kids out to lunch, do whatever. I look fine. Some people look at it, oh, he's just getting time off. It's just a vacation.
Even people with the back issues, man, it kicks in here or there. You don't get to pick when it kicks in, but it's kicking in, inevitably.
I'm going to correct you, Mitch, and I'm going to keep correcting you until you get it right. It's PTSI. I'm telling you, it's not a disorder. It's an injury. It just is. And we have to train ourselves to be advocates for that. It's not a disorder. It's a brain injury.
Well, and something important about that too is we're not a diagnosis. Whatever they do tell us, we are not that.
Exactly.
We are Jessica. We are Mitch. We are Brian. We are not the diagnosis.
That's right.
We are living with that. And we have to learn to adapt life to that, just like I had to learn to adapt life with a freaking wrist that doesn't want to work most of the time. Even today, 9 years later, trying to write too much, done. Doing 10 push-ups, done. At least I can do them now, but done after 10.
Right.
And then for a week, I can't use my wrist. So.
Yeah. So how did that look? So transitioning out, it sounds like, was there some bad blood, or you kind of kind of let in a little bit about how the department didn't really treat you well as you're transitioning out or during this time.
So I don't even see
I'm
it
not
as
trying to bash the agency, but
and
it's
I'm
just
not
your
either.
story.
Like, I don't even see it as bad blood. I just think it was a lesson learned. Like, because I hear it from almost every single person I interview. Like, it's just how it is or how it was. Like, nobody is thinking it's a business, right? Like, they're not thinking about you. Business moved on the next day. Just because you're not there, they've got a business to keep running. And as hurtful as that is, because we were sold this lie of a family,
yes.
I don't blame them. Like, did I really realize it was happening? Yeah. Did I care that much? Was I driving up there to be like, hey guys, remember me? No. It was just how it was. And we've all been taught that since the beginning. Like, it's part of the job. And that's just, it was part of the job.
I mean, good for you, because I'll be honest, I do blame them.
But I'm looking back now, and I can come with that clarity of 9 years out and look at it that way.
Yeah. Now, when I say I do blame them, it's not a spiteful blame. It's not I blame the culture.
Yeah.
I don't blame people.
Yeah.
It's because the fact of the matter is, there is nobody on this entire earth that can't pick one of these phones up and send a text message. The fucking president tweets every day. He's got time. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, even if it's just a text message to check in on your people.
And that's why I'm so vocal about it now, because again, one, I didn't know any different back then. Nobody that's come after me knew any different until it happened to them. And even to this day, and I'll even talk to my husband who's in law enforcement about this transition. And I'm like, you don't and can't and won't know what it is like to leave this profession in any way, shape, or form until you actually do it. And when it is taken from you, and even though I had to turn in resignation papers, it was taken from me. Like, my hand wasn't going to work again. So that was taken from me. Those who get injured mentally or physically and have to give it up. Those who get fired for I didn't get a COVID shot or whatever the fuck they're getting fired for these days. Like, different, right? Like, either way. And then even the guys I talk to who are choosing to leave and retire after years of service, they're like, wow, my department literally just handed me a receipt and said, see ya. Like, none of us are getting treated I don't want to say none. Some people did have a really great department and a really great transition.
Yeah.
So I do not want to take away or fearmonger or be like, your transition's going to suck, especially if you prepare for it. You're going to know, if you listen to me, if you listen to the podcast, you listen to all these other people, you know what to expect. Make it your own. Have your own freaking retirement party, like with the people you actually want there, not these people that feel obligated to be there. Like, who cares? But that's why I'm so vocal about it now, is there's a lot of lessons I learned through all of this that I can help you maneuver the pitfalls that you could step into. And God, that would have been really fucking helpful back then, but I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I wouldn't be doing with Next Shift what I'm doing today if I didn't have to walk through it all.
Jess, thank you for sharing your journey with us. Your start in law enforcement, the different roles you took on, and the challenges you faced, especially during that critical incident when mental health support was lacking. Your story is a powerful reminder of why these conversations mattered. This wraps up part 1 of our conversation, but there's so much more to discuss. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive deeper into your transition out of law enforcement and the mission behind the Next Shift podcast. In the meantime, I encourage all our listeners to check out the Next Shift podcast, where Jess explores life beyond the badge and shares resources for officers in transition. And if you're struggling, don't be afraid to reach out for support, for guidance, or just to talk. You're not alone in this journey. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you in the next episode.